My name is Judith Clarendon. I'm 81 years old, and I've lived in the same brick bungalow in Marlowe Springs, Tennessee, for over 5 decades. It's the kind of town where folks still wave when they pass, where the grocery clerk knows your name, and where history hangs thick like the summer air. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. This house. It's more than drywall and paint to me. My late husband, Franklin, built the back porch with his own hands. My son, Peter, took his first steps in the living room, fell on the shag carpet, and burst into giggles I can still hear if I close my eyes. It's where I danced barefoot to Aretha Franklin in my kitchen while the cobbler baked and the wind chattered through the screen door. And it's where my world began to quietly unravel, one sweet smile at a time. The smile belonged to Elise, my daughter-in-law, the woman who once clutched my hand after Sunday service and said, "I'm so lucky to have you, Mom." The same woman who would later sit across from me at the kitchen table, sipping my tea, complimenting my hydrangeas, while secretly working to cut me out of the very life I built. But I didn't know that yet. Back then I still believed her kindness was real. Back then I thought love was enough. Elise came into our lives 10 years ago. She was elegant in that understated way. Scarves instead of jewelry, soft-voiced, always with a polished "thank you, ma'am" that charmed even the grumpiest neighbors. When she married Peter, I welcomed her with open arms. I gave her my grandmother's pearls on her wedding day, wrapped in linen and sealed with a prayer. She called me Mom before Peter ever called me on his own birthday. It felt nice if I'm being honest. After Franklin died, the loneliness settled in like dust, quiet, heavy, everywhere. So when Elise suggested she and Peter move in to help out, it sounded like a blessing. They'd just had their second child, and their apartment rent in Knoxville was sky-high. I had 3 empty bedrooms and a big backyard. I imagined laughter in the halls again, sticky little fingerprints on the windows, rocking the baby to sleep like I had done for Peter. And for a while that's what it was. Until it wasn't. It started with little things. My favorite quilt disappeared from the guest bed. My mail started coming later and later, sometimes not at all. Elise began answering for me when we had guests. "Oh, she's just a little forgetful today," she'd say with a small laugh. I wasn't forgetful. I was paying attention. Then came the canned food. Past expiration dates, dented, dusty. "It's just for backup, Mom," she said, brushing past me in the pantry. "We don't want to waste fresh stuff on someone with your appetite." Someone with my appetite. I hadn't stopped cooking Sunday dinners. I still walked the garden every morning. I still bake, still read the paper. But her tone made me feel like a shadow in my own home. Then one afternoon Peter came home early. I was folding laundry when I overheard them in the kitchen. "She needs more help," Elise said. "It's not safe." She left the burner on again. Froze. That never happened. That burner hadn't been used in days. My son sighed. "We'll figure it out." And just like that the stage was set. Elise's smiles got wider. Her compliments got thicker. But her eyes had already locked on my house like it was a prize. I tried to dismiss the worry. Tried to tell myself I was just tired. Until the day I opened the mailbox and saw the envelope. Official. Legal. It was addressed to me but had Elise's handwriting on the return label. I opened it with trembling hands. And read the words that made the room tilt sideways. Petition for transfer of power of attorney and co-ownership of property. She had filed behind my back. Behind Peter's too, though I wasn't sure if I believed that yet. She had filed to have me declared mentally unfit. To take control of my house, my finances, my name. That day something in me woke up. Something fierce. Something I hadn't felt since I marched in a voting protest in 1962 with my mother clutching my wrist. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing my home. And I wasn't about to let that happen without a fight. Because if Elise thought I was just a sweet old lady with a memory problem, she had no idea what I still had left in me. If you're hooked and want to know what happens next, how Judith fights back, who she trusts, and how Elise's perfect little lie starts to crack, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my old recliner with the envelope resting on my lap like it was some kind of poisonous snake. I must have read the petition 6 times, every line cutting deeper than the last. Elise hadn't just suggested I needed help. She claimed I was incapable of making my own decisions. Words like mentally unfit, diminished capacity, and risk to personal safety glared at me in stark legal type. She even included evidence. A list of made-up incidents. Burners left on. Mail forgotten. Days missed at church. And then, tucked at the bottom like an afterthought, Judith Clarendon is no longer able to manage her financial affairs or property responsibly. That's when the tears came. Not the soft, pitiful kind, but the hot, angry kind. I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for my name. That woman wanted to erase me while calling me Mom. The next morning I made myself coffee, strong, no cream, and sat at the kitchen table like it was any other day. Elise floated in around 9, still in her satin robe, with that fake cheer smile on her lips. "Morning, Mom," she chirped, brushing past me to grab oat milk for her smoothie. "You sleep okay?" I looked up slowly, keeping my voice steady. "Fine. I read something interesting last night." She froze for a half-second, just enough. "Oh," she said lightly. "What was it?" "Some legal documents. Pretty dry reading, but informative." Her grip tightened on the smoothie blender just slightly. She didn't respond. But I didn't plan to confront her. Not yet. You don't yell at snakes. You watch where they slither and set your trap. That afternoon I went straight to the library. I hadn't used the computer much in years, but I sat at the corner terminal and looked up every word I didn't fully understand in that petition. I printed pages, highlighted terms, even called the clerk's office to ask about timelines and legal rights. I wasn't going to be steamrolled. Not in my own home. The next step. I needed a lawyer. But not just any lawyer. Someone who believed in the quiet strength of old women. Someone who wouldn't treat me like a porcelain doll with shaky hands. That's when I remembered Vivian Marks. She was in my book club years ago. A sharp-tongued widow with a mind like a steel trap. Rumor had it she'd gone back to school in her 50s and now practiced elder law in nearby Stone Valley. I called her that evening. "Vivian. It's Judith Clarendon. I've got a situation, and I think you're the woman for it." She didn't hesitate. "You're damn right I am." We met the next day in her office. Messy, full of old case files and cat hair, but I didn't care. I laid it all out. She read the documents, her eyes narrowing. "Elise thinks she's clever," Vivian said, tapping the petition with a red pen. "But this is full of holes. And if she filed without notifying you directly, that's a violation already." Blinked. She didn't serve me anything. I found the envelope in the mailbox. Vivian smiled. "Good. That's our first bullet." We spent the next 2 hours building my defense. She told me to gather witnesses. People who could attest to my clarity, my daily routine, my independence. I made a list in my head. Pastor Lee from church, my neighbor Dorothy who sees me walk the garden every morning, my pharmacist who watches me fill my pillbox without fail. I was still sharp, still capable, and I was going to prove it. But the real problem was Peter. I hadn't spoken to him since I saw that envelope. I didn't know if he was in on it or just being played like a fiddle. That night he came home late. I waited in the living room, lights dimmed. He looked surprised to see me up. "Hey ma, everything all right?" I motioned for him to sit. "Peter," I said slowly, "did you know Elise filed legal paperwork about me?" He blinked. "What paperwork?" I handed him the petition. Watched his face drain as he read. She didn't tell me." I studied him hard. "Are you sure?" He shook his head slowly, voice cracking. "I would never agree to this. Mom, I swear." Something inside me unclenched. Just a little. Then he did something that broke my heart and mended it all at once. He stood, kissed my forehead and whispered, "I'm so sorry." But sorry wasn't enough. Because Elise was still in that house, still planning, still smiling. So I nodded once and said, "Then help me, Peter. Help me show the court exactly who she is. If you're still with Judith and ready to watch this sweet grandmother turn into a force of nature, drop a comment below and tell us what you'd do in her shoes. And don't forget to like and subscribe." Vivian told me to move fast. "Elise thinks she has time," she said, leaning across her desk. "But we're going to clip her heels before she even knows she's running." Over the next 2 weeks, I became a woman on a mission. I hadn't felt that alive since Frank and I built the patio in '72 with our bare hands and a borrowed cement mixer. My bones hurt, yes. But my fire, it burned brighter than ever. First, I gathered my witnesses. Dorothy Pierce next door, God bless her, marched straight into Vivian's office and said, "Judith's been weeding that garden at 6 a.m. since I moved in 10 years ago. If she's confused, I must be hallucinating." Then came Pastor Lee. He brought his sermon notes, half of them peppered with my quotes and insights from our church discussions. He told the court that I'd single-handedly organized the winter charity drive last year and balanced all the books myself. Even my pharmacist, Jared, a 20-something who always wore mismatched socks, testified in a written affidavit that I'd never once mixed up a dosage or missed a refill. Vivian built a binder so thick I thought we'd need a wheelbarrow to carry it. But Elise still strutted around the house like she already had the victory framed on the wall. She cooked dinner like nothing was wrong, humming and plating meals with parsley flakes sprinkled on top, as if that made up for the betrayal simmering beneath her apron. Kept quiet. One morning I noticed something missing, my grandmother's brooch. It was rose gold with a single blue sapphire, passed down 3 generations. I kept it in a small velvet box inside my jewelry drawer. When I asked Elise about it, she blinked, all innocence. "Maybe you misplaced it, Mom. You've been forgetting things lately, remember?" She tilted her head, the same way a cat does before it claws you. He nodded. "You're probably right. But I wasn't forgetting. I was documenting. Every interaction, every dismissive comment, every financial paper she moved from one folder to another. I wrote it down in a little spiral notebook I hid in the pocket lining of my gardening coat. One evening, I watched her from the hallway as she pored over bank statements in the dining room. She didn't see me, of course. I'm quiet when I want to be. She had Peter's pension statement out. Not his, mine. My name at the top. My birth date. And there she was, calculator in hand, jotting numbers on a yellow pad with a little smirk on her lips. I stepped back into the shadows and exhaled. That night Peter came home early. I didn't wait. I took him out to the porch where no walls had ears. "I need to show you something," I said. I pulled the notebook from my coat and handed it to him. He flipped through it slowly, reading my entries. Dates, times, descriptions, subtle thefts, altered mail, missing food, skipped medical reminders. His face darkened. "She's been using your account," he said, voice low. "She's been siphoning money," I replied. "Bit by bit. And she's been logging into my online bank when I'm asleep." He leaned forward, hands clenched. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I looked him square in the eyes. "Because, son, until now I didn't know whose side you were on." He looked like he'd been punched. "Mom." "No," I softened, touching his arm. "You believe me now. That's what matters." He swallowed. "I do. I swear I do." That was the moment I forgave him. Not for Elise's actions, but for trusting the wrong woman. Vivian called me 2 days later with news. "Elise has filed a request for emergency conservatorship," she said. "She's trying to freeze your accounts and petition the court to transfer full property control." I was stunned. "On what grounds?" "Fabricated ones, I imagine." "But it doesn't matter," Vivian said, voice firm. "Because we're going to counter with everything. And we're asking for an immediate hearing. I'll file the request today." I stared at the wall, a framed photo of my wedding day catching the corner of my eye. Frank and I, young and golden. If only he could see this mess. But maybe he could. Maybe this was the test we didn't get to face together. And now, it was mine alone to finish. That night, Elise brought me a cup of tea. Chamomile. My favorite. She smiled that plastic smile. "Just a little something to help you sleep." I took it, watched the steam curl from the rim. But I didn't sip. "Thank you, Elise," I said quietly. "It's nice to know someone's thinking of me." She nodded, pleased. "Always, Mom." Smiled back. But in my head I wasn't sipping tea. I was planning exactly how this would end. And when it did, Elise wouldn't be smiling anymore. What would you do if someone tried to take everything you'd built? Let us know in the comments, because Grandma Judith isn't done yet. Like, comment, and subscribe to follow her journey. The morning of the hearing, I stood at my bedroom window long before sunrise. The sky was still ink black, but in the silence, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. Not because everything was fine. Not even close. But because for once, I wasn't being steamrolled. I was standing up finally. Peter arrived to drive me to the courthouse. He didn't say much, just offered me his arm. But when he helped me into the car, he turned and said softly, "Whatever happens, I believe you." That was enough. Vivian met us on the courthouse steps with her usual crisp confidence and a sleek leather briefcase. "Elise won't see this coming," she said. We walked in together. Inside, Elise and her lawyer were already seated at the front of the courtroom. She was wearing a navy blue blouse, her hair tucked into a low bun, trying to look like the perfect caretaker. But I could see the tightness in her jaw, the flicker of her eyes as they scanned me up and down. She wasn't prepared for me to show up strong, present, clear-headed. She expected a fragile old woman in a shawl. What she got was Judith Clarendon, sharp, dignified, and backed by truth. The judge, a woman named Marla Fairbanks, looked like she'd seen her share of family betrayals. Her silver hair was pinned tight, her voice clipped but not unkind. Elise's lawyer started. He painted a picture of an elderly woman in cognitive decline. He used words like confused, easily overwhelmed, and unaware of her own safety. Elise sat beside him, nodding solemnly, the perfect picture of concern. Then it was Vivian's turn. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady, "my client is none of those things. And we have evidence, witnesses, medical evaluations, and documentation, that not only is she fully competent, but she has been the victim of calculated manipulation and financial abuse." She handed the judge our binder. And then, witness after witness took the stand. First, Dorothy. She described Elise's cold demeanor, the time she saw her remove Judith's mail, and that she hadn't seen Judith eat a proper meal in weeks unless she brought it herself. Then came Pastor Lee, with his testimony about Judith's contributions to church projects, the sharpness of her insights, and the unwavering clarity in their conversations. Even Jared, the young pharmacist, was called via video. He spoke warmly of how Judith always checked her prescriptions carefully, and had even corrected him once on a missed refill date. Every word was a nail in Elise's carefully constructed coffin of lies. And then it was my turn. I rose, slowly but confidently, and took the stand. My name is Judith Clarendon. I'm 79 years old. I've been a mother, a wife, a bookkeeper, a gardener, a deacon, and for the last few years, an invisible burden. I looked at Elise. She looked away. I want to make something clear, I said to the judge. I know exactly where I am. I know who I am. And I know what's been done to me. My daughter-in-law pretended to care for me while robbing me blind, isolating me, and trying to take control of everything I spent my life building. Vivian handed me a stack of printed bank statements, highlighted transactions from my pension fund to Elise's consulting business. Then I presented a hand-typed log, dates and times when food was skipped, mail was hidden, my health appointments were rescheduled without notice. I didn't make this up, I told the judge. I lived it. Elise's lawyer objected, claiming I was emotionally manipulating the court. But Judge Fairbanks waved him off. Then came the final blow. Peter stood up. He wasn't supposed to speak. But he asked the judge for a moment, just one moment, to say something. She allowed it. My wife told me for months that my mother was declining, that she was mixing things up, falling asleep during meals, forgetting names. I believed her. He turned to look at me, then back to the judge. But I was wrong. And that's on me. Because the woman sitting in front of you is the same mother who raised me when my father died. The same woman who worked 2 jobs so I could go to college. The woman who used to whisper math problems in my ear at bedtime. He faced Elise now. And the woman you lied about. The woman you tried to erase. The courtroom was silent. Even Elise didn't speak. She just sat there, lips pressed tight, jaw locked in fury. The judge took a deep breath. After reviewing the testimonies and the evidence, it is clear to this court that the petition for conservatorship was not filed in good faith. In fact, it appears to be part of a pattern of abuse and financial exploitation. He turned to Elise. You will have no further legal access to Mrs. Clarendon's estate, bank accounts, or property. Effective immediately. Then to me. Mrs. Clarendon, the court recognizes your autonomy. You are free to remain in your home, and your rights are fully restored. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but instead I just nodded. I had won. But more than that, I had been heard. As we left the courtroom, Elise brushed past me, her mouth tight. She muttered, "You think you've won something?" I looked her square in the eye. "No," I said softly. "I've just reclaimed what was already mine." She didn't respond. But I saw it. The look of someone who'd just been caught, not by luck, but by a woman she underestimated. What would you do if someone tried to steal the life you built? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. I never expected to feel pity for Elise. But there she was, 3 days after the court ruling, standing on the porch of the house she once bragged was hers by default, clutching a pair of designer sunglasses like they were some kind of shield. I opened the door slowly. She didn't look at me. Just kept her eyes on the threshold like it had betrayed her. "I'm here for my things," she said coldly. My fingers tightened around the doorknob, but I stepped back. "Take what's yours. Nothing more." She walked in slowly, her heels clacking against the hardwood like they didn't belong here anymore. And they didn't. Peter had come earlier that morning to help supervise. He stayed quiet, but his presence was firm, a reminder that Elise no longer had free rein in this house, or over this family. As Elise walked through the hallway, her eyes scanned everything. The photos still hanging on the walls. The floral rug in the den. The rocking chair by the fireplace where I used to sit with her son, my son, on stormy nights, reading him bedtime stories by lamplight. She paused at the kitchen. The kettle was steaming. I'd made chamomile tea. She used to hate chamomile, called it old people's water. "You still drink that stuff?" she asked, her voice edged with mockery. I didn't flinch. "I do. And I enjoy it." He turned away. Peter stood at the dining table, arms crossed, watching her as she rifled through drawers. She picked up a few things, her favorite skillet, a couple of wine glasses she brought over when they first moved in, the faux silver candlesticks she insisted gave the room character. Then came the moment we were all waiting for. She tried to open the hall closet. Cleared my throat. "Not that one." She looked at me like she'd forgotten where she was. "I bought that mirror," she snapped. "It's mine." "You bought it with my money," I said. "Out of the pension account. Vivian already itemized those purchases. You'll be reimbursed for what was fairly yours. But that mirror isn't going anywhere." She stepped back. But not out of fear. Out of defeat. It was sinking in now. The control she once had, over the house, over me, over Peter, was gone. Gone with a bang of the gavel. Gone with every lie unraveled. Peter spoke up. "Elise, I'll help you load the car. Let's just keep this simple." She nodded, too stunned to argue. Maybe too ashamed. As she packed the last box, I stepped out onto the porch. The air was warm, sun high, and the crepe myrtles in the front yard were in bloom. I stood there in my cardigan, hands folded in front of me, as Elise walked past me carrying a box labeled office stuff. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't even look at me. But that was fine. I wasn't looking for closure. I had something better, clarity. Peter stayed behind after she left. He helped me put the boxes back in place, cleaned up the mess, and even took out the trash without being asked. When we sat down for tea, he looked at me differently. Not like someone to be pitied, but like someone to be respected. "Mom," he said quietly, "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I reached across the table, rested my hand over his. "I'm just glad you see it now." That night, the house felt lighter. Not just quiet, peaceful. The kind of peace that comes after a storm when the roof held and the windows stayed strong. I lit a candle in the living room and sat in my old rocking chair. And for the first time in years I rocked slowly, not from nerves or tension, but from calm. I was still Judith Clarendon. Still the matriarch. Still the woman who built this house, held this family together, and refused to be erased. And now, the next chapter of my life, on my terms, was about to begin. Did Judith's strength inspire you? Let us know in the comments below. And if you've ever been underestimated or pushed aside, share your story, we want to hear it. Like this video if you believe respect is earned, not stolen. Subscribe for more powerful grandma stories where the quiet ones rise, and the underestimated fight back with grace and fire. Stay tuned because the next story might just be your favorite yet.